So Dario, just read through this, and we'll see why Peter Andre's not been able to reply in a few days.
Dear Dr. Tundelemo, my word, you are a handsome chap indeed. It has always been my understanding that in identification photographs, the subject is generally required to face the camera, but nonetheless you look very striking indeed with your rugged looks and strong jawline. You are obviously a favorite of the local photographers in your area. I must say, Dr. Lemo, I was at first very dubious about this deal, what with all my trouble with Charles Saludo, but after seeing your very professional looking ID card counter sealed with the official logo of the Central Bank of Nigeria, I am feeling very confident that we will have this transaction completed very quickly indeed, and that you will get exactly the reward you deserve for alerting me to the wrongdoings of your predecessor.
Right, and here comes the spanner in the works.
Now I must apologize for my delay in replying, but sadly I have had a horrendous few days. You see, Dr. Lemo, I was out for a walk the other day with the full intention of sending the money to your associate, Savior Sunday. After an hour or so, my elderly mother called me and asked me to come home at once. When I got home, I went into the living room, and there was a dead fellow there. He hadn't been murdered or anything, he was dead, in his funeral suit and in his coffin, which was on a stand in the middle of my living room. I was shocked. I mean, I don't even know who the fellow was, and here he is, lying in a coffin in my living room. I called the funeral directors and I explained that there was a corpse in my living room. The man I spoke to was very helpful at first, and eventually we worked out what had happened. Turns out, Mr. Lemo, that the coffin containing the deceased chap was meant to be delivered to the local cemetery, but due to a mix-up in the funeral director's computer systems, was delivered to my house, and because my door was open, they just set the coffin up in my living room.
I've got a malfunction. Check it out, will you? Second, these coordinates are wrong. Did you set these?
What's a few degrees?
What's a few degrees? What's the matter with you, man?
I thought that the problem would then be sorted, but alas, it only got worse. As I spoke to the man at the funeral directors, I thought that they would simply drop by, pick up the recently departed stranger, and be on their way. Now, Mr. Lemo, I can't remember the exact wording of the phone call, but it went something like this. So, when will you be around to pick him up? Well, it's not as simple as that, Mr. Andre. There are rules that have to be adhered to. Like what? Well, your address is listed on the funeral papers as his final resting place, so moving him would technically be grave robbing. So before you move him, you have to get an exhumation permit from the council. So I called the local council and explained the situation. For some reason, the girl I spoke to thought it was hilarious. And once she had stopped giggling, she informed me that they would send me out the application form in the post. But to actually get the permit, it could take up to 6 weeks to come through. And until then, I'm stuck with a dead man in my living room who I'm not legally allowed to move. When I asked the girl at the council for a bit of advice, she simply replied, keep the windows open and the heating off, then left some more and hung up. I'm furious, Mr. Lemo. Furious. Those morons at the funeral directors picked the worst possible time to make a complete cock-up. I'm going to write the local ombudsman a very strongly worded letter indeed. Anyway, I should try to ignore this cautiously placed cadaver for the next few days so that I can make the payment. I can do this tomorrow, but I require your assurance that this Mr. Sunday is reliable. I don't know what it's like living in an economic superpower like Nigeria, but here in England there is a recession on, and $850 is a lot of money. I hope to hear back from you promptly. Regards, Peter Andre.
So Andy, you seem to quite enjoy that there.
That was tops. That was icing on a cake, guys.
Oh well,
Seriously.
How would you reply to that if
I wouldn't.
you wouldn't?
I would. Well,
What do you think the precise advice is to give to someone you have financial dealings with if they have a dead body in their living room?
there's a question I bet you thought you'd never be asked.
I couldn't honestly tell you.
Okay. Well,
I would hope that
the next reply from Dr. Lemo as in bold and in Comic Sans, so we can presume he's very angry indeed.
He actually replied.
Mr. Peter, I have read your mail, though I'm not happy with your delay regarding this issue at hand.
To be fair, Peter Andre's got a lot of issues on his own
Yes.
hands just now.
The fund is supposedly must have been transferred to your account before now, but you keep delaying with some excuses. Yes, the excuses of having a dead body in your house. Anyway, I have no much to say, but I only give my assurance to send the money via MoneyGram to Mr. Saviour Sunday and mail me the payment information. It's almost as if he's not fazed at all by the fact that the person he's got financial dealings with has a dead man.
Yeah,
Perhaps it's quite a common thing to happen in Nigeria.
Yeah,
Obviously, I've not been, but
there's constant delays with mix-ups with the funeral directors.
but anyway,
I wonder why it's not possible to get you with the mobile number you're providing me with.
because it's been switched off.
It upsets me anytime I try to reach you. Oh,
poor guy.
not happy man until you send the payment slip to me and Mr. Saviour Sunday pick it up for the transfer for your fund to be transferred out. Regards, Dr. Level.
Right, so one mail. This is the most recent one we've sent. This was just sent last night.
Dear Dr. Thunder Level, salutations, my good fellow. I am growing rather concerned regarding your lack of response. I sent the $850 on Wednesday, but as yet have not received a reply from you. Obviously, we didn't.
We didn't really send $850, but this will expand over the next few days. But anyway,
Has Saviour Sunday picked up the money yet? I made the payment through MoneyGram as requested, but have not had as much as a peep from you thus far. I am trying my best to cope here, Dr. Level. I am a very stressed out Stephen at the moment. I still have a decaying corpse in my living room, which is giving me no end of grief. We've had an unseasonably warm few days, and the only form of cooling I have is a small USB fan, which really isn't helping the situation very much. The corpse, which I have named Kenneth, is starting to attract flies, and I've had some stray dogs scratching at the front door. I finally got the forms to have the body moved, but sadly missed the last post from the island this afternoon. I filled them all in, but sadly missed the cutoff for the post at 5 p.m. despite me driving as fast as I could to the other side of the island to meet the deadline. Honestly, Dr. Level, even the speed bumps dotted all over the island didn't help. If anything, they actually slowed me down. Anyway, please let me know when I will have the money in my account. Kind regards, Peter Andre, former Royal Grandfellow of the Club Programme.
right, so obviously we're not.
And
actually
then
sending
ends the
it.
transaction. Or the correspondence, rather. Not the transaction. The transaction is never ending.
So obviously we'll post these on the website, and you can have a look through them.
And eagle-eyed listeners, well,
Eagle-eyed
viewers,
listeners.
Eagle-eyed
listeners.
eagle-eyed viewers of the, well, they listen to the podcast, but eagle-eyed viewers
Well, the thing is, we say
of the images
we say it's
from
a
our last
podcast.
podcast might have noticed that
The picture.
there was a brief picture which was a bit something wasn't quite right. It was the picture of Willy Wonka. Yes, it's not really Willy Wonka, as you can see by the fact that Tommy Cooper's face is badly photoshopped onto it. It is in fact one of our old scam baiting characters, Baron Albert Herman, who is in fact a soup baron on the Isle of Beaver.
Yeah, it's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory except with soup.
Yes, if you can imagine the excitement of that, and although a lot of the residents of the Isle of Beaver often do have struggled to find themselves
Yeah,
tempted by
because like Willy Wonka, he made a competition, and he put golden tickets in tins of soup.
Yep.
And,
And some children ended up badly mauled in the tour due to a very convoluted clockwork contraption that he made to warm cockaliki.
probably with soup. Yep. So
I believe they were chewed up into cogs.
So
we'll include the link to Baron Herman's website for his theme park also, but we'll get back on with the room.
And also, if you get any spam emails of your own that you want us to take up, you can feel free to email us on
You
the
can
usual
forward
address.
it to us at nothing in particular podcast at gmail.com.
Yep.
Whatever you do, tell everybody about it. And mind the steps. Ooh.